It's the 1530s. While Calvin is working on his theory, in Germany there is a sort of Cold War. The religious peace of 1532 is holding, but just barely. The emperor is just as eager to crush the rebellious Protestant princes, but for now he is still embroiled in a vicious war on three fronts with the Ottomans and the French. He absolutely needs the help of the princes, therefore he must accommodate even the most bellicose ones. John Frederick I, Elector of Saxony, and Philip of Hesse are on a warpath. They have a long-standing feud with Duke Henry of Brunswick-Wolfenbüttel, the last Catholic prince in the north. In 1541, when the Duke attacks the Protestant city of Goslar, the two princes mobilize against him and occupy his dukedom. Church property is seized and the dukedom is forcefully converted to Protestantism. The emperor tries to help Henry, however at this time he can barely spare any resources, so Henry is defeated again and imprisoned. But not everyone is as eager about punishing the Duke and forcefully converting Catholics. The southern states and cities of the Schmalkaldic League see this as a foolhardy gamble that will surely result in the ruin of the Protestant cause. Instead of strengthening the League, this show of force weakens and divides it. Meanwhile, fortune is turning for Charles. In 1544 he makes peace with France and a few years later with the Ottomans. Now he can finally focus all his power and energy on his German subjects who are in open rebellion. But even though Charles is acting in the name of Catholicism, he cannot count on the support of Catholic princes who are just as skeptical of imperial power as the Protestants. The most Charles can get is their neutrality, therefore he must gather his own Habsburg forces from all across the empire. This, however, will take time. The League's plan hinges precisely on this fact. They can mobilize and concentrate their forces faster, therefore they can attack preemptively and defeat the emperor's forces one by one. In 1546 they go on the attack, catching the emperor by surprise and forcing him to retreat south. Next they strike into Tyrol, but due to John Frederick's ineptitude they fail to prevent Italian reinforcements from linking up with Charles. This is when the emperor strikes back. He has an ace up his sleeves. Decades ago, Saxony had been split between two lines of the same dynasty. The Ernestine line, represented by John Frederick, rules the electorate of Saxony, and his cousin Maurice of Saxony of the Albertine line rules the dukedom of Saxony. Maurice is a Protestant and a member of the League, however Charles had already bought his favor, promising a rich reward if he turned against his own side. Just as League forces almost grasp victory in the south, Maurice and Archduke Ferdinand launch an attack in the north. John Frederick has no other choice but to take his forces north to defend his lands. Charles immediately seizes the opportunity and moves to pacify the south. His forces are led by the Duke of Alba, the best general of his time. The southern Protestants, who were already reluctant participants in the war, quickly yield before the imperial army. Meanwhile, John Frederick successfully defends his lands and gathers reinforcements, however he has to send part of his army into Bohemia to block Maurice and Ferdinand. Meanwhile, Alba marches north unopposed. His army already outnumbers John Frederick's by 2 to 1. On the 23rd of April, 1547, he stealthily crosses the River Elbe and utterly crushes the Protestants. John Frederick is captured and the League falls apart. Philip of Hesse quickly surrenders and is also imprisoned. Seemingly, the Protestants are finished, however, as soon as the emperor turns his back, resistance continues to simmer, now centered around Magdeburg. Charles wants to end the war at all costs, so he proposes a compromise. The Augsburg Interim of 1548 gives a little and takes a little, leaving both Catholics and Protestants unsatisfied. The Protestants form a new league and secretly agree with the French to attack the emperor from two sides. The unlikely leader of this new league is none other than Maurice of Saxony. Even though the emperor made him the Elector of Saxony, he is still unsatisfied. He is a German first and a subject of the Emperor second. In the autumn of 1551, the French attack along the Rhine, and in spring 1552, the princes launch an attack against Tyrol. Charles is desperate to avoid another war on two fronts, so he is forced to give the Protestants a better deal. In 1555, the Peace of Augsburg is proclaimed, reinstating the cuius regio eius religio principle, meaning Protestant princes are free to choose the religion of their states. This freedom, however, only refers to Lutherans. Calvinists are not included and may be persecuted as heretics. This aspect is most unfortunate, as Calvinism had just begun its exponential rise all across Europe and within the empire. While all this was going on, Catholics were not sitting still. Preoccupation with church reform is not exclusive to Protestants. The first pope to seriously consider internal reform is Adrian VI. Adrian is Dutch and is thus far removed from Italian dynastic politics that prevented reform during the reign of Leo X. His papacy, however, is short-lived, lasting from 1522 to 1523. Adrian's reign is again followed by 11 years of ineffective popes preoccupied with Italian affairs. In 1534, however, the reformer Paul III is elected, and his papacy will last for 15 years, giving him ample time to launch a vigorous reaction to Protestantism. Paul recognizes that such things as simony, absenteeism, pluralism, nepotism, and the mass sales of indulgences cannot continue. Therefore, these aspects are purged from the Church. Paul also recognizes the importance of education, not just for the higher echelons of the clergy, but also for the humble parish priest, who up until now was barely literate. To make sure that his reforms will continue after his death, Paul only appoints fellow reformers to the College of Cardinals. His biggest achievement, however, is the Council of Trent, convened in 1545. This Grand Council of bishops, cardinals, and religious scholars from all across Europe lasts for 18 years and will prove to be a milestone of Catholicism. The Council affirms that the Bible is not the only authority in religion, but in fact authority is shared between the Pope, the religious councils, various Catholic traditions, and the Bible. Also, they recognize that the 5th century Latin translation of the Bible is the official one. They reaffirm the 7 sacraments of the Church and that salvation can be achieved through faith and good works. They stand by the elaborate ceremonies of the Church, as these are done to celebrate the glory of God. The Council also stands by the concept of transubstantiation, meaning members of the clergy do have special powers, and therefore they should have a special status within society. All these assertions and reassertions are very important to strengthen the base and to show a united front to the Protestants and also to those who are wavering. Parallel to the Council of Trent, a new religious order is being set up. Ignatius of Loyola establishes the militant order of the Society of Jesus, otherwise known as the Jesuits. Loyola had been a soldier fighting in the emperor's service. After he was wounded, he withdrew to a monastery where he had a vision of God that lasted for 8 days. Awakened to his new purpose, Loyola writes the Spiritual Exercises, a self-help book focusing on meditation and developing a deep religious calling. Loyola soon gathers a cadre of loyal followers, and in 1540 Paul III grants him permission to establish a religious order. The Jesuits proved to be a nemesis to the Protestants. They recognized that Protestantism grew out of the universities, therefore they place an even greater emphasis on education. Jesuits are like soldiers, armed with the most up-to-date knowledge and the best debating skills. They are often the bridge between church and state, most Catholic princes having a Jesuit advisor or two. In Catholic countries, courts of inquisition are set up and an index of forbidden books is published, making sure that all future heresy is nipped in the bud. Protestantism is finally contained and will not spread any further than it already did. But by the 1550s, with the rise of Calvinism, Europe is already a powder keg waiting to explode. It is true that even in Catholic France and the Habsburg Netherlands there is a sort of accommodation with Protestantism, but this does not mean religious tolerance. Catholics, Lutherans, and Calvinists all live in their designated enclaves. With rare exceptions like Transylvania or Poland, confessionalism becomes the norm. This means that in Lutheran states one must agree to the points laid out in the Augsburg Confession. In Catholic countries one must conform to the decisions of the Council of Trent. And in Calvinist lands one must agree to the confessions of faith of Calvin and various other Calvinist scholars. In the Holy Roman Empire, the Peace of Augsburg will hold until 1618. However, in France and the Low Countries, Calvinists are on a collision course with Catholics. The French Wars of Religion and the Dutch Revolt will be followed by the bloodiest period of European history, the 30 Years' War.